Hi everybody, I'm Jess, your go-to Street Fighter bestie, and we are here taking a look at the second half of the Mega Crew Challenge involving Swfv and HANOIXGIRLS. I'm excited to take a look at this, and if you do not know me, I am Jess. I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, but I also have adjudication training that comes from Hip Hop International, which this organization is really well known for their Mega Crews, and so I'm not operating on behalf of HHI in any way. I'm just letting you know when I go to react and analyze, it's going to come from that type of training lens. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Burn all the way.
Ooh.
Fire.
Okay. Ending fairies for us all. We all have an ending fairy. Ba 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 ba. Okay. All right. Let me see. So from the top, in a nutshell, overview for this, they did a pretty decent job on the usage of levels. I like the transitions. A lot of those choices. Big notes would probably be the actual content. It did feel we were plateauing, entertaining, very similar hybrid styles throughout the entirety of the routine, so there wasn't a lot of depth in terms of creating a sense of pulse with the viewer and how we were watching it. Where we have a couple really nice moments, and some moments kind of feel like they should have been our finishing point, but we extended it a little bit longer, so it kind of made it feel a little bit anticlimactic and underwhelming compared to what I feel like could have worked in their favor. Okay, here we go from the top. Tell to see here, like it just to pan out, it's cool. Honestly, really like this beginning. Beginning's really cool. I don't mind the simplicity of it. It doesn't bother me really that much. They did do a pretty aggressive basket run that took up about 2 8 counts, so I think they win for probably the longest basket run for the sake of a transition out of all the megas so far that we've seen. This running, now we hear the fire. If we just use context clues based off of the name of the crew, so fire, I try not to justify with megas. We try not to justify concept because that is more of like a pop culture, something that's not related to street dance in the history behind it. It's not a street related concept. And so in order for it to remain as even on the playing field as possible, we try to go off of the other mechanics, other things like the musicality, stability, mobility, staging, your costuming plays a role, as well as the overall performance, presentation, and audience appeal, and what was it, style justification. But we're not really going to touch on that one as much because this is it's street dance, but they're not being forced to abide by the HHI schema, so why we're going to sit here and expect that of them. Anyway, this run out is fine. I like the lack of running from our center. It's cool. I find it interesting that we did choose to have her just in the front in comparison to in the middle. I think having people contrast and run around her, I think could have been a really interesting complex visual, especially because we're panning out. It would have allowed more depth to it. Cool. The little speed change is also really nice. They lengthen it so they drop down. The settle with the head is also fun. They come up, and I like how the ba-da-da-ba-da-da, that's also really nice, where you have it going from stage left to stage right. It's simple but effective. Nothing crazy there. Like I said, not a huge stickler on complexity versus simplicity. When you have other things to balance it out, if you're just doing unison for it, then it definitely can be a huge no given to you, especially if you're being compared. In this Mega Crew Challenge, they are being compared, which is not fair because HHI, we're not allowed to do that because that questions the integrity of your panel. So that's why for me, I don't do that. But I know in this lens they are, so that will come up in the conversation. So keep that in mind too. I do like where you have about 2 groups diagonally come up and they walk in their windows transition. I like that. That's cool. And then from there, as soon as they hit their mark, the next group comes up and then they integrate a speed change, which is really cool. I don't mind still having our member here. I think it could have been cool for her to entertain a simple walk. Her standing there and looking is fine, but I do think there could have been another way to figure out, another way to still simply be featured without having to move too much. But also, I know their turnaround time is very, very short for a mega. Guys, megas on average spend about 2 to 3 months, competitive elite level megas, just for qualifiers for stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I really am super impressed with the fact that we have something to show in this way. Are they a bit on the simpler side? I think across the board, most of them are. I still have one more to watch, but that is a big thing. And I think that could be part of it is they don't have time to add more complexity. So we're going to take what we have there. So little lift right there is cool. The marching on tempo, we're here for it. So I'm assuming this is the kind of crew logo that they have, which I think is super cool. They said, okay, let's go. And they go, so fire, da-da-da. Cool. Arms up to down. Then we have somebody in a basket. They hop down. It kind of looks like they lost their balance and they had to regain it. Didn't quite look like its own moment to me. So, but I wouldn't give them a deduction or anything for that because deductions do happen if people fall out of stuff, props fall, that kind of stuff. But here in this case, we know that ain't a thing because we barely got a schema to work with to begin with. So we pick our battles. So the little run is fine or just a running position. And then the marches are fine too. And then they do a nice little 2-step with the pickup of the foot. It's fun. I like the hype of that. And this boom, boom going high to low. So I like the kick. And then we kind of thread it through to make a lower level. I like that kind of stuff. But we are riding the music a bit predictably, or our musicality is one that definitely could have some improvement in terms of when we're choosing to do unison for prolonged longer than about 4 counts. In Mega, you want to be very mindful of that's going to be something looked at, and you're going to be scrutinizing your crew collectively because you're asking us to by going unison. That's basically what it is. So in this here, they don't have heavy musicality. It goes back to my points, but remember, I am going to be honest. It is simple, and that can affect the overall impact that it has, which I think it ended up doing, especially around halfway through. So row through, so I like the little boom and the revs right here with the arms. I like that. That's cool with the transition. Then we have our double diagonal, which is also really nice. boom, and boom. And we end up having a point in the back, which is cool. Nothing crazy there. It's clean. We're here for it. For me, we have to choose, are we going to opt for like heavy performance and stage presence and not cleanliness, or are we going to opt for cleanliness and sacrifice a little bit of the complexity or captivation and content? I think most crews opted for the for the cleanliness, you know, and simplicity versus complex and messy. I kind of opt for that too. The little snake on there is fine. You had your back group do a little bit higher, which is also really nice. Nothing crazy there. But notice once again, we're hitting the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's very countable, very digestible, which long term doesn't work in your favor, but for short term stuff is fine. You have your little point right here. So that little add-on was really fun. So they just take their arms, they swing from side to side, allowing the hinge of the body to allow there to be a degree of fullness, as well as having the knees go out as well. All of that looks really fun, mighty dandy, and that was a really cool aerial shot too. They're also not just competing content and formations and staging, they're competing camera shots, because they had control on how this was shot. That is what I learned from the episode. That's a component that megas normally don't have. So that's what's fascinating. Little marches are cool. I appreciate that outside of just that one aggressive basket run, we do choose to add just a stylized choice going into our transitions, but they do feel very simple once again. The little pickup there is fun. I like the little extra rotation happening here to help create these lines. I like the double diagonal once again, and then you have a mini column in the middle. And a little framing to the respective outsides is cool. And that boom, boom with the look. Come on now. I love that. And they go boom, tap, tap. I like that we actually hit that instead of just doing something that just bled through the phrase. We actually hit the ta-ta, and it looked pretty decent. The zoom in was fine. Then it goes boom, she goes around. They also were one of the few groups that the features, I mean, most of the features are members of SoFire, but they don't stick out. So based on your judging panel, are they going to dock them for that? Because we cannot see where they clearly are, like you could from F.E.D, from Oops. Those types of things are like subconscious expectations that naturally get set the more you watch something, and that can be used against you, which is unfortunate, because if it's not established from the jump and it's not something expressed, then how is that fair to SoFire if you never say, hey, by the way, your crew, yes, your crew needs to be in charge, but your crew needs to be the focal point, costuming wise, because I can see them be the focal point in the features at least. That is just a disservice to the logistics of the competition, because I do come from, like I said, the background of HHI is very clear and very specific, and they have pages upon pages of rules and regulations, and they even have courses you can take to go and understand how a judge is going to be judging, but it's still a lot. Does that make sense? So I get that, but I come from that lens on how is it fair to judge a crew if they do not know what they are being judged on. I think that was touched on with SS Warriors, because I agree with her. It's like, it's not fair. You know, we're only going off of what comes off of Street Woman Fighter season 2 and season 1, and I had the same notes there like I'm given here. So it's just, there's just a lot of logistics that need to be better in order for the fighter franchise to actually have global success and be respected within certain areas that needs to be respected in. So from here, the little bridge recover was cool, and the little accent with the kick was cool, but partially for me, I did prefer it to be more of a wide shot. I understand the zoom in so we could see that moment, but wide shot so I could see what were the other dancers doing during that time, how empty was it. But also judges are looking at the camera shot, they're not looking at a fixed cam, so we're gonna see what the judges are seeing. So a little dig, a little run, a walk is cool, and then they roam. They end up doing it 3, once again another unison section. We're going to be clocking range, so not just the timing of A and B, but how they get to A and B. That's a big thing too, which is fine, nothing crazy. They hit little pot of beret, they lit, boom, my oxygen, cool. Now, I do know their concept, they look like firefighters, and their red tassels, whenever they connect them at the end, is like fire hose. But once again, I'm not going to be able to factor that into the overall, wow, that was so captivating, I love the gimmick. I can't clock I'm not going to count the gimmicks for a competition mega crew, because I just can't do that. Okay, so unison once again, that's fine. Basket runs, missed opportunity, or at least clock the camera to where I don't even catch it. You have this little slide. I love the distance on that slide, was really cool, and I like how everybody kind of responded based out of her slide. So the drops are really cool. They pick it up, nice. And then we have the knees, 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again, pretty simple in the execution. And we end up doing it on both sides, and we go boom, 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 and we go out, nice little bounce, in front, and we look and it hits. So I like on the word 2, we have it with the number 2. Come on now. They take it over. I like the every other on this. And then they go, they rotate, taking the arm out to the side. They also take that hand, make it its own moment to thread it through. Not really thread, but allow the rotation to take place with the first grouping of dancers. Then I like the speed change once again, but at a certain point, when are these speed changes done in the exact same way, maybe just facing a different direction with a different group of people? When are we going to start clocking them as, they're not as creative anymore because we've seen it 3 times, right? So I talk about the power of 3s. It's cool to have a fingerprint. That's not my point. I love having a speed change to help with the transition. But if you introduce the speed change in the same way, meaning you have it as like this little run, and not where it's a focal pointed in a different way or repackaged, then that's going to be a note, and it's going to drop your creativity score. So for me here, also look, once again, basket runs. Ooh, now I keep seeing them. Ooh, they're sticking out like sore thumbs. Bless it. From the front and from the back, they're absorbing in the formation, but then we're walking. That's wasted time to me in the transition. The drop down. Now this kind of formation is cool. It establishes multiple levels, but it is way harder to justify nowadays compared to way back in the day. The reason why is because it is a trendy, viral structure of levels to showcase when it comes to arms. You've ever seen the tutting group where they have the white gloves and you have all these people and you have somebody conducting and they do all this? I think the dude's from France. And I gave this note to Just Jerk where what people are going to do is there's always, whenever we see this formation, we have a predictability on what's going to happen. In my head, when I'm looking at this, I'm going to think they're probably going to do some arm sequences, regardless of the dynamics of it. They're going to do arm sequences of some kind, and their speed changes or whatever musicality they're going to do, it's going to be about on par with what they've done. It's not going to be this elevated, astronomical thing I've never seen before, and that's exactly what they did, which does not work in your favor when you meet somebody's prediction in that way versus deviating or going a different route about it, meaning have the setup but don't do arms, do legs, do something, do chest, something that doesn't imprint the same way of other things that we are so used to seeing in the street dance choreography mega crew scene. I'm speaking specifically to that because in multiple circuits, you pick your poison on what circuit, a group has done this. So there's an oversaturation there, just like whenever you see Afro, and when we get to HANOIXGIRLS, that's going to be a really big thing I'm looking at is how close to theirs is it going to look like to Royal Family. And that's going to be a huge note I give them. Doesn't matter your culture. If you don't have any creativity behind your intention and your performance and power and presence, then it's just movement, right? So because the street dance scene is based off of creativity. Like creativity is one of the vital components of doing street dance. So, but that's a whole nother side topic. Anyway, but this level here, it's cool to see the heads. It's really nice. They take the arms up, they fold it over, bringing it down, and then having all these little deviation stuff is cool, and then having somebody control them in the center. It's not something we've never seen before, but it's a cool moment, and I like that it's a breathable moment for us to appreciate, but also because we zoom in on our feature here, who is a member of Swfv, I mean, all of them kind of are, they're like helping, right? We don't get to appreciate what she's controlling, right? So that's a note there. That little D, not quite the cleanest there. Little pulls, pull, and boom, with the body roll to reset. They throw. And then from here, I like the slide away with our dancers. So I would say with spacing, they're doing a pretty decent job. We got to give them that for sure. The slide through is cool. So now we're doing a little get sturdy influence there with the little pickups of the feet. Come on now. And they pick it. I like the little drag to finish. Ow. And then we pick up the leg. And then right there, yeah. It feels like they're completing a variant of getting sturdy, which I think is cool. The diagonal's really nice and clear to see. I like the hinge around. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hit, cool. And it goes out, and that wasn't really super readable, and it could be the fit or the angle in which we saw that. I think it was supposed to be a hinge over with multiple levels represented, but it was really muddled, and it was a very minor level change. So that's going to be a note there. So then having the tempo change is fine. Cool. And then we go, of course you have one of your members use the hand to kind of allow everybody to deviate. And they look with their heads, but with that kind of simple arm, with the throw on that, more than a head I think would be very helpful there with actually letting the torso match it. But I kind of feel like they kind of did, but it wasn't readable as well because of the costumes. Turning through. The hit, so that definitely feels like we're about to do like a little hit them, folks. And you have some people drop back, which is nice. Then you have people that are nice and low, and they go knees, which is cool. And we do a little elbow punch to the sides. But notice syncopation is more on the predictable side. There's not a lot of their choices this doesn't feel does it feel like, okay, when I think of So Fire, I think of like 5 different elements that I've never seen done before that So Fire brought to the table. It feels like that, okay, I've seen that before, but they structured it in this way. It feels like a mega crew, but it doesn't have a creative element that really showcases them outside of concept. And when you want to go about a mega crew and actually showcase yourself, it's in the movement quality too. It's not just in, oh, look at our outfits, look at our song. It's a look at our formations, look at our dynamics, look at our texture and how we hold ourselves. Our groove that we're seeing here doesn't look iconic in any way. It looks replicated or it looks trained. And that is, unfortunately, with the choreo scene or with a lot of battle scenes, you see people who mimic or you see people who don't have a huge degree of individuality. And remember, I'm not sitting here dogging on their battle sense. I'm not sitting here dogging on their freestyle sense. From a choreography standpoint, this looks easy to replicate in the sense of there's not really a lot of things creatively happening here that allows me the privilege of going, that feels like a So Fire texture. That feels like a So Fire musicality moment. It feels like a standard textbook equivalence of trying to do an average to a teetering above average mega crew, depending on if you're judging performance or skill. That's just being very, very honest on the oversaturation of the mega crew scene in the competition circuits. When they go tap, 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 that's fine. All this, having some viral moves is nothing crazy there. A little pat of the head. They progress it up is fine. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, somebody that would be considered a minor fall, I clocked that over here on stage left. Now what happened here, this walk up, because of how we blocked out the lights, it's really cool. The bleeds on that were really cool. How she's marching, part of me wishes that she fought for tempo, but I also understand climbing on people is a dangerous thing. This feels like an ending to me, but I also know there could be a time restraint, meaning that they have to have a certain time on this. This should have been your ender or your finisher. This feels like a finish. It doesn't feel like a, okay, we're about to go and pop off, you know? So she goes boom up and then she hits it back, but also because of the camera angle, we could see people catch her. So that would be my note there. You want her to look like she's disappeared because I didn't realize there were people back there until I saw the hands. So you don't want that. You want her to literally disappear and go, oh my God, did she die? You want people to feel that way because it's impactful, right? So they all come out, the bleeds are cool, and that right there is fine. And then, oh, we're not done. Then I feel like, oh, we're still prolonging because we're hitting the same parts of our track because our track is kind of it feels like an extended cut, right? And which is fine if you hold it down with dynamics and other elements and areas that we're talking about, right? So going to what we're talking about here, because that element was really cool and the lighting really worked in their favor for all of that, she dropped back and they have these little melts, that's cool. But now we're panning over, okay, now this feels like an extension, or it's not helping their score to me. If anything, it's actually kind of making it chip away on the performance value of it. Because it feels like, okay, we're not really continuing to punch. We're just kind of dialing back, or we're still just having to meet our requirement on our time limit, or hey, we're prepping for this gimmick. It doesn't feel like a powerful finish. Because that could have been really nice, right? And how she presents herself is fine, but it is underwhelming based on the saturation of numbers that we saw on a very like low bass type of, or a low sound production type of the track. It was a really cool moment and they melted. It would have been cool if this was set up in that melt and they broke away from the group versus panning it over. Because now it feels like we've dropped a level and we've gone into a verse versus we had our finale and then we're done, right? Or we're like, hey, by the way, this is where we're at, and then we're going to be peeling people from this formation, you know, because that would be what you would normally do. The turn, this right here, I see that she was trying to do, you know, a little fan out of that. I think she's trying to showcase her individuality, but you have to remember you're going to have people on your panel. You can't rely upon them knowing who you are. And I know who she is. I've seen her this entire season. It's cool, you know. But this right here feels out of pocket for what you just did for the first 2.5 minutes, right? It feels like we're trying to have a moment, but the moment is not holding its own compared to the moment that you just had. It feels like we're dropping, right? And we have these melts in the back. I like that hit. You could have totally had that. You should have had them in frame the whole time. Use them to help build your energy. And we just threw away like 5 people over here on stage left. Right? And then we go hit. Now they're all too far away for my personal taste because she's so zoomed in. So I would actually pan this back out to allow us to see that or have her closer to this formation. It just goes back to my point. What could have solved a lot of this is having this next bit start within this lifted section that had happened. What? Boom, boom. Then notice right here, I don't know how long they were holding that until, what? It feels like I don't know how. Did we actually do something there? That to me, missed phrasing opportunity. Another thing that showcases complexity in your content is the ability to integrate your movement across phrases and not making them feel so cookie cutter, A count to A count. So that's what we're kind of noticing here, is that we had this little A count, we're waiting one count until this group starts, versus we're having this call and response moment that I know they're trying to go for, but it feels very cookie cutter and basic. I also know, remember, I know this, they don't have a lot of time, but the general public is not going to look at these and be like, oh, I'm so considerate for SoFire because they only had 5 days. No, they're going to view this the same way as if they go watch an HHI routine or a WOD routine, and that's not fair to them, but we have to understand the general public and who's watching these too, you know? Oh, inside note, the judges are also not going to think about that either. You have to remember that. Okay, they're there to critique, they're not there to be considerate. The judges are there to execute the law of the schema that doesn't exist, right? Whatever. So now you have your group, they come out, they're doing these little marchy march in the back. It's a bit distracting for me because it's a clump and it doesn't feel spread out, but I understand why they're not spread out, because they have a gimmick they're prepped for. I get it. Now you have everybody here, they're trying to hype. And the marches, they're still marching on tempo, is cool, but once again, it's a bit oversaturated in our transition choice. It doesn't feel as creative. At least throw the arms up versus down every time. They go away. That's what I'm talking about, of a phrase, like a bled over phrase. That was cool, right? You notice that. So we go through. What? Yeah, boom, tick, click, click, click. I love that choice of syncopation. So this right here, I wanted this from the jump, right? Not from the jump. I liked the beginning. It was cool, but we didn't send it to a place to consolidate or for what was going on in our beginning. What? All the way, da-da-da, boom, and we got the group back in. So all the way did not happen on a 1. It happened on a 5, right? So it was bled right in the middle of that 8 count going into the next one. So right here we have a V. It's fine. And then, of course, they're making the S. I like the gimmick of it. It's fine. That click, 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 but it does restrict them. They can't change their formation or anything. So this is what we have, right? And like the little Superman moment, they dial it back, that click, 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 click. It's still unison. I like the transition on this. Thank you for that. That's what I wish we had more of. They wasted a lot of transition time not doing content or doing something to make it productive. They did like a go-to speed change, or they went through like a marches on tempo, which I appreciate. But it is still a missed opportunity in a competitive range like this or realm like this. Those little moments really like in an overview, really can affect your score. With it a subjective judge panel that you have, it is going to happen that way. So then you have the V is now nice and absorbed. Don't quite know what's going on right here. Kind of feels like this side was a little cut off, and so this feels a little muddled over on this side, but it feels very nice here, like it melted well. But here, I guess we wanted to avoid my guy here. I think they needed to be there, and they panned that out by 1 extra person, but that's whatever. I get that. Okay. And they drop it down, da-da-da-da-da. Boom, boom, so fire. Cool, and then you have those that are low and those that are high. You can't see the fact that half of the group is low and half the group is high. So I understand the S is cool, we're here for it, but I think having it and then panning it down or doing something to where they have another cut to see the levels, I think that would have helped in this case. I don't know. So in general, I don't know how this is going to score. I'm not going to score it. I'm not going to score any of them because I know the audience is going to flip it all anyway. This one was fine, but once again, there's not a single mega crew I've seen so far on the Vietnam side. Or honestly, on the Street Fighter side, there's like maybe on the count of my hand, probably 3 or 4 that I've watched, and I'm like, yo, that's a mega crew, right? But here, all of them are about average, above average at best for these. Okay, last one, we have Hanoi X Girls. Let's go.
Legendary performance crew, Hanoi X Girls.
X.
Now it's time to dance.
Yo, we are X-Girls. We are next and iconic. Power girls, we can bounce away. Dance is live, never tell us to quit. Look, here we go, the beast. You don't know what it means. You should know what it means. We are X-Girls. 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 Not too far. Next and iconic. We are X-Girls. That's our dance style. Not too far.
Okay. So part of my, so cute little ending pairs. I think are always really cute. Oh, so what's the, okay, F.E.D, right? We're gonna call the elephant in the room and talk about it right now because I know so many of you are probably like very curious about my thoughts. I'm gonna say it right now. There are multiple factors that go into this entire situation. I have heard people giving HANOIXGIRLS so much flack over the fact that F.E.D, their teacher, director, whatever, he's the one that's been running the show. Please keep in mind, Madison Media Group chose to edit HANOIXGIRLS section the way that they did for whatever narrative they want to make. And a lot of people may be like, well, Jess, they just want to showcase the truth. No, they don't. They want to create a narrative, whatever they choose to show. Just like I showed with the F.E.D HANOIXGIRLS segment. Why in the world did we feel the need to show them being in the same room when they were running their rough drafts for their megas? That's not appropriate. If you're going to do that for them, do it for everybody. Don't sit here and try to push this narrative to try to start real drama as a result of it. So for me, I do not have no dog in that fight between HANOIXGIRLS and F.E.D. With F.E.D, my one note I could give him is if he's in a leadership position and it was discussed, I mean, we don't know what was discussed in terms of, okay, HANOIXGIRLS had to be the ones in charge, production had to say, hey, just reminding you, you had to be the ones in charge. I already spoke about that. Now, if F.E.D continued to do what he did, or he didn't adjust his role, because he had a potential learning opportunity too in this of saying, hey, I can't run the show like I normally do. You got to take a step back and be an advisor. Has he ever been in that role before? I don't know. I don't know him as a person. Not my job, right? I'm only going off of what I'm given. And as much as people want to provide context and comments, I don't know them. So I'm not going to believe anything at the end of the day, even what I'm given, right? So we got to keep that in mind. Please know I have zero qualms with any crew. I hope for all of them to continue to grow and be successful and to enjoy the art of dance in these challenges. It is a very stressful environment. And so, of course, being in the positions that they're in, I totally understand if certain things happen. But also, we have to remember, there is no reason why Madison Media Group did what they did with good intention. You know what I mean? It's never really that. So we have to remember that, guys. Do not believe in how the Mnet production influence system likes to frame things. Mnet was dreadful at stuff like this. So of course, they formatted this just like them. We can't forget that. Now to talk about the mega crew. Overall, it's not really that creative. Just like I've said with pretty much all of them, their structure is very powerful. They have more presence in the video in comparison to a lot of the other groups. But this whole beginning segment reminds me so much of Royal in the music as well as in the movement quality. Royal Family does not own the movements, but they're the ones that catapulted the structure of how mega crews a lot of times are streamlined today. Because like I mentioned, they are the ones that won back to back to back in Mega Crew Gold and HHI. That's where a lot of this started going into the mainstream, was in that scene. When it comes to the high energy Afro influence pocket, I'm not talking about the vibe body rock stuff. That's been going on for a hot minute. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the HHI circuit with megas. They're known for that, right? And so anytime when I would sit and I would watch and you look in an Afro section, it is so hard to not see a Royal Family influence set. You can tell based on the music, which is what you heard, that little shing, it sounds like sorority, which is one of the subunits of the Royal Family grouping of things from the palace, right? So we can get into that all in a whole little hot minute. That was my fear whenever I heard one Mill give feedback saying it reminds me of Jam Republic. That may not be a good thing because it's not going to showcase originality, right? So that's my big note going into this. So I like the angles, were cool. I love the levels. We're here for it. And the lift up, fine. But notice that they kind of bookended their styles in the beginning to the end. And they did it in a way where at least the tracks felt different, right? But the structures felt similar, so it kind of felt like a repeat of how we structured the beginning into the end. So we go down. the energy there, that kind of stuff's what I'm talking about. So the punch, and the invert on that, and the boom, da-doom. So how they're hitting on the bass, how they're transitioning, how they're punching out of it, that little shing. You see what I mean? It feels like a hybrid. Now, some people are like, now, Hanoi girls, that's just what they do. Okay, that's fine. But you also have to remember, this is on a show where it's like, where do you think they were inspired from? You know, I know that some of the members have taken class from Kirsten, and what is Kirsten's background, guys? Royal family. So it's like, we're not going to request too if we really want to call the receipts on it. So it's, oh, bless it, you know, like we can't sit here and say there's no influence involved, and I can see it plain as freaking day right here. And that's dropping and dropping and dropping your creativity score. And it has nothing to do with the director, it has nothing to do with them as people at all. It has everything to do with the structure of it. Formations are great, levels are great. I should hope that they should probably still score pretty high, because at least on the performance quality side, they are more elevated there. They are more impactful there. I do think there's some unnecessary transitions where it kind of takes me out of the fact it's a mega crew and it kind of feels like a K-pop challenge a little bit, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So a little that's fine. Lean, cute, little fan, okay, fine. Basket runs, missed opportunity, make a different choice. That little, well, that's cute. They said hello into a little dip, cute. So they have a heavy Vogue, heavy whacking. Well, no, more so Vogue and arm control influence. We're not really going to give them whacking, which is fine. So they have a very clear understanding of like what styles are hybrid. So this right here feels like we're kind of trying to go heavy in the afro. The arm swings are fine. They hit. Now, let me explain to you what the risk is whenever you do choose to go afro, not just on the creativity side with the oversaturation of the expectations that come with it, but when you look on how styles are measured, a lot of times it's not just, it's the authenticity. The authenticity has to do with the pocket or the exploration and posture and how you hold yourself when you do it. You can tell somebody who has an authenticity behind their movement quality. Now from there, you elevate it to complexity. That can be through the content itself. So how polyrhythmic are your choices, and how much are you deviating from the fundamental in a creative way that showcases or introduces this move in a way that feels familiar but is also different, but I know that you have an authenticity about it, so it feels justly innovated. That's a really big thing that is looked at when you go off of the authenticity, when you with the HHI side, with authenticity going into the complexity, those are different, right? Those are what is measured. And then style justification, you have to at least be able to recognize the style. So I know that they're trying to go more afro. So the performance is really nice and full. That type is fine. Of course, they have the heads. For me, it does feel a bit fake, but because they're in the silver and the pinks, concept-wise, it's just to talk about. It's not influencing my opinion about it, because with megas, you can't be influenced off of it. Costuming, the metallicness of it is fine for the styles that they're choosing to do. It does get very Barbie mannequin-esque, which actually works for arm control. So that helps them in that case. A little and it's in their crew colors, which I know that it's nice to have the crews in their crew color. It does help. And I know Oops is in the reds. They were giving so far a color palette, but I really like their vibe and what they ended up doing with their set. That little boom, 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 boom. Cool. They bring it out, and I love the fullness of that with the little roll. And then they basket run away. Missed opportunity once again. She pans it over. Now, notice how when you had your feature, she pans it over to another group. That kind of stuff, I think it gives a mega crew concept vibe. There's a whole section when they have Vitden, I think it's featured. I do have a question. Is Vitden in the set, or did he just show up there? Because if he's not in this set at all, except for that one moment, that's a huge note to him, because that, to me, he doesn't need to be there. And why was he there to begin with if he was not in this set outside of that one moment that we saw him not even be with the groups at all? So that is a really big note that I'm going to talk to him and say to him about. If he's not in the set, I don't know. Y'all will need to tell me, because he's in a completely different outfit than everybody else. So I don't know. Anyway, we pan it around. We have a little body roll, and of course the range is off on this. So one of my guys near the center is off on that. Performance only goes so far. If you're not clean, it's not going to work. And that's what's happening here. We're not clean. We're doing power without control. So it doesn't feel fluent in your body, because if you're able to go that full, you know how to control it. There has to be a balance. Just like strength and flexibility, you got to have a balance of both. You can't be overly flexible without strength, and vice versa. So going with here, if you have a lot of performance, but you don't have a lot of cleanliness, and you don't have a lot of complexity, and you don't have a lot of authenticity, what are you doing? You're just being loud without having style. That's kind of the basis of it. Now, I'm not saying that's what Hanoi X Girls is doing as a crew, but I'm saying little things like this, we can't neglect the cleanliness of our routine for the sake of power, right? We can't sacrifice that. Yes, performance most of the time measures in a tiebreaker. The performance score is what whoever scored higher there compared to the skill and performance, but skill matters in the grand scheme of things. It's equal unless it's a tiebreaker. So a little yeah. So they dip down, that's a cannon. So that was pretty decent to see. And then you have these little moments right there. So nice little catwalk. Yeah, oh man, this is all little facial expressions. I mean, you do you. They don't matter to me, because also a little fun fact with HHI, we're not allowed to actually influence performance stage presence off of face. We go off of body language, because like I had mentioned before, some of the full back shots that you see in the videos, that's how far back we are when we watch. So we can't look at the individual faces and be like, oh wow, they're really giving it in their face. If their body doesn't show it, then it don't matter, right? But I know for this, that does matter, because the camera and how it's opted does influence what we see, right? And so I do understand there's certain things that matter here that normally don't, and what I'm used to looking at, which is fine, totally fine. I'm telling you, I know that. Okay, levels are fine with the arms and the pulse it. So if you really look at what they're doing, there's a lot of formations, a lot of levels, a lot of dynamics in play that compensates for the simplicity. Simple doesn't mean easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy to have this pocket and make it look this full. I get that. But it's simple in content. But the formations are compensating to create that balance, which is why it works. But then you can very quickly run into, if you run out of these dynamics and these layers and levels, eventually that's going to tap out, and you got to elevate your complexity of content with some uniformity and create some depth and dynamics there, or it's not going to be as helpful for you long term. And that's what I think they ran into here. So they go da 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 da, because it's always punch in your face on everything. Basket runs, missed opportunity again. You see them go off stage, clocked it. So this is fine. Boom, boom, boom. With a switch is fun. Little partner work is cute. Little ching ching, the little ching ching. I've already told you that's straight up. I mean, anytime I hear that ching 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 sound, it's just, oh man, it reminds me. Kyle Tootin, if you know who he is, he's done so much K-pop choreo. There is a set that he did, Royal Family 2013, ching, 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 I'm a grown woman. Go to that. Whenever I hear this sound, that's exactly what part of the set I'm talking about. They won gold there too. And when my HHI certification expires at the end of the year, don't think I ain't going to be tackling some of my favorite HHI routines, and that is one of them. Anyway. That was just a little teaser. Get ready, guys. And I like the little switch up there with a little, I like the assist on that. It's cute. But there's a lot of punch, and there's no breath behind it. And I think like you're not allowing me to breathe. And so I can't appreciate your punches or like how you're impacting in performance without allowing me to sit and enjoy the subtleties that come with it, right? So that's going to be a big note I give this one too. It's very impactful, but it just feels like one big blob of energy. It doesn't feel like I can actually pinpoint the key moments in which the energy matters. Right? They go hit in and out and hit and in. Oh, man. Anyway, this right here could have been a great opportunity to get nice and close and really appreciate this. Was fun because there was no reason for me to see that basket run come out. Because why? We're zoomed into this girl right here. And that basket run was just wasted. Whatever they chose to do coming up, we couldn't see it because of the camera pan. So that's a camera shot thing. That little, it's cute. I like that we have some of our people matching what our feature's doing. It's fun. And I like that little, I wish that she went around her back so we could actually see that. So she runs. Okay, cool. We're here for it. It definitely feels, it reminds me of Bring It On a little bit because of the little, the split in the top. I think that's kind of fun. Anyway. So down, that was a really nice transition, and then basket run, really got to refine the basket runs. You could totally do your walks or totally do bounces or do something to reintroduce them, because the chicken wing basket run, all it does, it just looks like we're getting ready into our next formation, not justifying your flow whatsoever. Especially if you have camera cuts like this, your flow and your transitions matter so much, because I'm not going to be able to appreciate a fixed cam one take like I really want for these, to just be able to see how the whole thing's structured. And when you look at this routine, this is not a routine that is structured for, it's not technically a mega crew structure, because you cannot go through the entirety of it in one go. And we'll get to that in a second. Da, 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 da. The little clap there is fine. Dun, dun, and we drop. Hit, hit, and then we go. Fine, that's fine. But notice basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 8. 1, 2. So they're going once again off of power and performance and stage presence. But we've been hitting the same energy the whole time, so it feels boring compared to the earlier stuff with heavy levels to combat it, to combat the simplicity. Now we don't have that, and we're still simple. This just dropped your I mean, it's not really dropping your complexity because it was already average anyway in your content, but it drops your performance, if I'm being honest, because there's nowhere for it to go. It can only go down at this point because you're keeping it up and up. So now it's you against your stamina. If you can't keep it up in high impact this whole time, you ain't going nowhere, you know? So they'll hit, sit, high. Cool, the ISOs are fine. Rotating it in, that's whatever. Click, click, click. Not really clear or readable to see who your features are in this moment. It looks a bit cluttered. But that's probably just because of the gloves. They also have these gloves that make your arms a freaking microscope for me to critique. For this, they would receive lower scores because not everybody's arms look the exact same. The range is off. It's hard for me to clock your features, so it feels messy in level justification. Hitting it up. The drop down, so that was fun. I like the little diagonals there, but what is this group doing and what is that group in the back doing? Yeah, so this transition happening here was a bit muddled and it's still not straight. And to me, I know some people are like, oh, they're still transitioning. That's the beauty of having mirror transitions, because you would at least have somebody else that is doing the exact same thing in the same spacing. Now, maybe we could possibly clock these two as that, but I do know we have those that are hinged over. We have about half of them with their arms straight, and then you have those that are going in between the windows, having some of them have their arms out, some don't. So the extremities were not as communicated as much as go, 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 full out, do more, is what I felt like was being preached, more so than, hey, let's make sure that everybody matches the same degree of the extension that we're going for. The pickup there, one of our girls, her hip was out of alignment for that. Now, normally wouldn't clock that kind of stuff, but whatever. This right here, I mean, it's whatever. So those, so they're double timing in the upper, and then they're doing single in the lower down there. So they pick up, so the punches are fine, but right here, once again, it's kind of feeling like, I mean, I can see where they got the Jam Republic vibe because of that little pulse that we just saw on the ground. That reminds you of the artist challenge for Hawassa mission from Jam Republic, so I get that. But because that's not something that's related to the Mega Crew side, that's whatever. I don't really care. They don't own that. So they drop it down, boom, boom, cool. Part of me really wanted to see that from the front to see what the levels look like. But the arms were cool. The punch there, boom, boom, right there in the energy. So they drop down. So now we have a cool moment. So she walks through. She goes through, nice, nothing crazy. So they're there, and then, oh look, more people are running. The turn, the kick, fun little feature moment, but we didn't have anybody contributing whatsoever to help her with that. We had the camera moment, cool, to hide. We used her feature to hide, not to showcase her. That's what that felt like. And I think Minga from SoFire, it felt that way with her as well. But I already said my piece about SoFire, so we're moving on. But here, that little ching, completely unnecessary sound bit for the sake of justifying a musicality that actually drops your musicality score because it's predictable and you're supplementing and you're not being creative at all with your music that you have because you have to import and saturate with all these unnecessary sounds. That was an unnecessary sound. It wasn't a fingerprint, it was a sound just to make that more sharp because there was nothing in the music that helped you or allowed you to have that sharpness. So that, and I have said that in feedback before, and there have been crews that have made that change, and their score unsurprisingly went up on musicality when they went to Worlds, because that is a real thing. That is a real measured thing, is when you listen to the track on the performance side, people are measured off of the actual production of the song. And if you have unnecessary sound bits in it, it sounds oversaturated, not authentic. It sounds like a cheer set song. It doesn't sound like a street dance affiliate whatsoever, except for the last song. Because you have the Vogue timbre overlaps of the ding ding. There's certain sounds that are under the Vogue culture, and we will talk about it when we encounter it. But all this other stuff, this is the Mega Crew cheer song bits that you're hearing, right? And so that's a big note that I'm going to give that. And I would tell them, like, if any of these crews, I highly encourage them to watch these because I want to be helpful, but also know, I know you guys did a fantastic job for the fact that you did this, but we got to call it what it is. If you're doing mega, these are things that get looked at. So the switch there, they pan it out, boom, boom, boom. And then once again, another sword swipe. We don't need that sound. They rotate it around. If anything, it just cut the flow every time you chose to have it, and it didn't contribute to your routine whatsoever because it's an aerial shot anyway. So let us sink in and be saturated in this tone shift. The first one that we technically have in your entire set, and it's been 2 minutes. So the rotation, like, this is gorgeous. 1, 2, 3, 4. BPM raising, that's really cool. So all these angles are really fun. Once again, another ching, didn't need it. So we could have just changed the texture on the arms, changed the range on the arms, and you got the same look. So they bleed it out. So I like the X, it was nice. I know that probably for HANOIXGIRLS, but I mean, it is what it is. So we have our moment here, we're dropping down. I like the little arm, little figure 8 on that, rotating through, a little whacking overhead there. Then, of course, another basket run, missed opportunity. Them and SoFire got the same amount of transitions that need to be fixed. Now this is nice, I like the every other, it's cool. Now this is whacking right here, we got some overheads, more polyrhythmic, which I appreciate. With this first song, we really have some dense polyrhythmic syncopated moments here that last longer than 2 counts, so I appreciate that, thank you. They go high, low, and then they basket run, just ruin the flow once again because we chose to do the chicken wing basket run. Then we have this moment, I think it's cool. Having the camera, you have it and you can choose to do that, that's cool. Now we're going to more like it feels like it's like a hip hop transition, what it feels like. And also, part of me feels like she went too early, didn't it? And she reaches, yeah, so no one else did it, but she did. She committed to it. And then she had to reset it. So that, to me, that was a mistake. We're clocking it as that. That's life. They're human, right? It's okay. And they have the boom and a boom. So the fullness of that. Does it feel different than what we've seen? No. Different than the last little section that we just had, but it feels the same. The throws, we're getting more and more saturated, which is working more and more against them. Punching through, the little hit and hit, that's fine. So they have the arms up, so the little lift is fine. That little boom, 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 boom. What are we hitting there? Oh, so we just had one person justify that. So when we have a heavy, heavy bass like that, that's a perfect opportunity to have everybody do what she just did, or to do a ripple, to do a cannon, or to do something with depth to it to help make that sound feel more full. It felt very empty, and I had to go searching for who was justifying that sound, or it was a unnecessary sound addition in lack of musicality, so it will work against your score even there. So this right here, so this little gimmick here is fine, that's whatever. So you have a couple people, they're vibing with it, so we have 2 people doing it. It's a very, very minor transition for as much of a thing we're making it. So where are we going with it? It's not like Weed and Boys who had freaking platforms and they were moving to and fro all over, the stage. That was whatever. But like here, the intention of this, why did we have this, was this to tie into the very beginning, which once again, can't go off of concept. This gimmick is a gimmick, and we've seen it twice now. We see it with 2 people, and we just move maybe like 2 inches. Like it's not as productive, and you had to rely upon the camera to get that shown. And the reach back, I think the camera angle was unfortunate too, because we can't really see what they're going for there either. So we have this moment here, da-da-da-da. So this little hit, hit, hit. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of the Royal Family fingerprints that I have noticed is how they choose to do their breakdowns, and they end up doing something multiple times, and their intensity looks the same the first time and the last time. That affects their complexity score. I'm telling you that right now, which is why a lot of times when people are like, oh my gosh, why did Royal not win? They may take top score for the performance side, but there's a whole nother judging schema of criteria under the skill that Royal Family has struggled over the years to maintain above average superior rating on compared to the performance side. And that's something that we can talk about much later. But I've had to analyze all of Royal Families and all the gold, silver, and bronze medals over the years in Mega to help prepare me for my national certification in 2021. So I am not a stranger to understanding what is being looked at with a large number of people under a general judge's perspective under this lens, right? So this right here is no stranger to me because I've seen Royal Family do it a lot. They do it very, very well, but there's other factors that end up scoring you less because you choose to opt for it. It works great for camera, right? Which is what we're seeing. It looks great for camera, but range was off, right? For that. So rotation around, we have a little feature right here. I find it interesting that we're choosing to have a feature that's not a member of Hanoi X Girls, and we have a regular member. I mean, we love it. I love being able to celebrate people, right? But she's not wearing as like a special guest fit or anything like that. And I do know that other crews ended to opt for featuring some of their dancers in their crew too, which is cool. But the running is fine. They also ended up kind of pulsing this little crunch on that. It did remind me of Weedham Boys for the JT set, and I had a bunch of notes to give to I think it was to Mike's song. I remember he said a note on feedback because I needed to watch that, and he had said something about they didn't meet the standard and expectation that people have for that Justin Timberlake set. And in my head, I'm like, that's not your job as a judge, is to sit there and go off of expectations on a track. That is a cultural thing, right? And that's a choreography thing. That's not a street dance thing. But that was a complete, we don't blame him because Mnet doesn't give criteria for anything, not well at least. So I don't blame him for that. But that was a note I gave Mike. I was like, we technically shouldn't be doing that. So anyway, he grabs the camera. I think that's kind of cool. But then, no reason for us to be doing this right now. Is he wearing a different outfit? I mean, everyone's in tanks, right? Everyone's in tanks, but he's in a shirt. That's what made me think, is he in the set? It doesn't look like he is, because he also have a silver do-rag, so it feels like he's special. The little brrrr, okay, fine. There's a little tie, there's no laces on those shoes either. So I think I find that kind of funny. A little breath. And then,
Now it's time to dance.
and then right here, this reminds me of Jam Republic's Beyonce set from, you know what I mean? This mess right here would not exist in a mega crew, so that's going to be a huge thing that I'd give him a note on. If it's a mega crew challenge, make it a mega crew challenge and go for the integrity of how a mega crew is supposed to be. I should be able to shoot it from top to bottom without you having to do anything. This is not an artist challenge. This is not a K-pop challenge. It's mega crew. What comes with the integrity of the culture of how a mega crew is judged is what I just said. Now, is that something that was discussed? I bet you no. I bet you that's never been talked about, because this is honestly one of the first times I'm encountering this scenario where it feels it's like a cut in the Twilight Zone. This is, you know, if we were just doing them, this would be great for the beginning, but not right in the middle when I know that those dancers would have to basket run out or something and they can pan it over. So that's really the only way I could logistically see this actually happen, is you see them all set up in the back, and then you have your group that just finished in the front, and they basket run away, because that's what we've been seeing as the camera pans over to this feature over here, Vitten, right? But I do have a huge question, like, I'm going to say it right now. If Vitten is not in this routine, he should not have been a part of any of the mega crew preparations at all. If he was not in this routine outside of that little moment. Being very, very frank with you on that. And I don't blame Hanoi X Girls for that, because they're his students. I get that. That's a Vitten thing. If you're going to be the role that you're in, at least be in the freaking set. It's kind of my note. And I will retract all of this if he is all throughout this set and he's just in a costume change for this, which is another side note in Megas. You don't do costume changes unless you do costume changes when you go off stage. Like, you have to have a time frame to do it. That's another thing. Like, that's not for Megas. We don't really do that. But that's just a me thing, and it could just be my standard that I have, and I think it's okay that I have it. Okay. All right. Moving on from here. So this right here, this is the most impractical portion you could possibly have in your mega crew. It's cool that we get to focus them, and then oh look, we get them basket running in the back. We could have totally have had them there the whole time and had them all accent in movement quality to match the girls. I think that would have actually contributed so much more to this portion, and it would have felt more like a mega crew. So they got back in. Now that ting, you hear that crash? That is a Vogue timbre. It is part of whenever you listen for a typical Vogue track, it's going to have that sound in there, and we love it, and we live for it, and we celebrate it. It is so cool. Anyway. Love me. I love watching Vogue, guys. I'm telling you right now. No, some things I'm kind of like, I don't know if I would want to like listen to an MC say a lot of things that an MC says in like a ballroom, you know, like at a ball. But I mean, when it comes to like some of the tracks, they go freaking ham. Now we have this situation. It is a structured, leveled, you know, formation with a lot of arms. We've already seen a lot of arms, especially here with a lot of these little, oh, we're tired, but also this right here, it's mirrored, but it also reminds you of that little toe touch split that we saw a little bit earlier. So this is already something we're very, very familiar with seeing at this point. So is Vitten here? I don't know. I don't really know what he looks like either. So, and they go here, and then I'll let like the hand shaking, that's fine. And take the arm, boom, da-na-na, yeah. Okay, fine. dun, dun. So all of there's so much. Okay, let me see. So we have it on 2 lines on the side, and they go inside to outside. Nothing crazy there. And then we have our energy right here. So of course we're doing a lot of different just arm positions, little catwalks, of course with the switch up. So some basic catwalk variants that are happening over on the sides. We have these lifts happening here, of course lifting the girls right there. Like the levels, we're here and we go into a dip, which is fine on the ding. Normally it's where you see it. Now you have people in front, you have the girls up, so they're elevating on their levels. Levels look fine here. In our X girls, cool. And then we have this little accent over on the side. We march. I will take that over a basket run every freaking day of the week. Then the columns are fine, but we've already kind of see them walk through columns already in the set. It doesn't feel like new information. And they go forward. Now this is fun. I didn't mind this. Boom, da 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 da. So they go through, boom, boom, have the crossover, and they take it over, over, tap, tap. Nothing crazy on that. Walk, 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 and we hit there. Little melt. 5, 6, da da da. So we go boom, da 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 da, boom. Then we have melt, 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 melt. Nothing crazy there. We throw, boom. Then they finish in a V. Got some levels. It is hard to see who our members are at the end, but also who knows if that's a criteria or just something naturally expected to find. But okay, cool. Nothing super, super crazy. Oh my gosh, I'm shaking. Oh my goodness. Okay, okay. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, nothing, I mean, inherently, you know, there's nothing that stands out in this routine that makes me go, wow, I am so captivated. I feel like I learned something, not that I learned something new or that I felt newness, like creative newness. Like that's a really hard thing to justify in general in competitions nowadays, but especially here, like I understand why One Mil put them first. They have a heavy saturation of levels and dynamics, more so than all the other crews. So we're gonna give them that. I will say, I think I can see this fair either way. I don't know how this would place. I can see it placing high for similar reasons as to why One Mil placed it high. For me, I'd probably score it about on par with everybody else. It would be neck and neck for a lot of these groups. I would say SS Warriors, unfortunately, is one that would probably score near the bottom, just based on my own criteria that I try to go off of, which, side note, if you really want to know what specifically I'd been looking at, I go over all of it in my intro of the previous Mega Crew analysis. So I hope you saw that one first before going into this one. But all the things that I'm saying, at the end of the day, it is okay if we are given information, even if we don't like it. It is okay to assume that there's a chance that there's so much more to the story that we're not given. We're given one focal point from one environment at one period of time. We are not there in the day-to-day like everybody else. We're not. We're only given a very specific narrative that Madison Media Group wants to give us, right? And I know a lot of people are probably going in, watching this routine with a sense of negativity and disdain because of outside circumstances, which is not fair to HANOIXGIRLS. If you look at this the same way as you look at F.E.D, as you look at Oops, as you look at SoFire, SS Warriors, you know, it's not anything, it's not the most captivating thing in the world. They have some of the best performance and stage presence out of all of them. The choreography structures it that way, but also I wasn't allowed any breathers from it. So that I think that could be a really big note they get, is that exact thing, you know, but we're here to celebrate all the groups of the fact that they pulled something that most people cannot do. Most people cannot make a Mega Crew this quickly. Any of them. So even if people are like, oh, they used VITDIN, we don't know the full circumstance of that. All we're given is whatever F.E.D shots are given to us and whatever Madison Media Group chooses to put in the show. Like, you have to remember that. It's not, we don't have the full picture, so we can't sit here and make a decision that is going to berate an individual when we really don't have the full story, right? So, I mean, I hope what I'm saying makes sense, and I hope it didn't come across too blunt, too curt, or too harsh. I've spent the entire season with these groups, so I'm very familiar and I'm very comfortable talking through a lot of these challenges because this is not my first rodeo on any of their performances, and I've seen all the episodes too. So I'm going in with as much knowledge as I think I possibly can, while trying to stay as objective as I can in this scope. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. By the time this gets released on YouTube, I would have already taken a watch of the episode. And so if you're like, Jess, I want to see your thoughts there immediately, Patreon always has early access to literally everything that I post. And so if you're somebody that is impatient, that's a perfect place for you to go and dive in. I have so much more material over there that gets blocked, that's just not here, that can be battles. Street Dance China is a huge thing over there where a lot of people that I'm familiar with have done those scenes. I've done Street Woman Fighter Season 1, Season 2 and involving Waxy, and then I've also done Street Man Fighter with Nux. I've done some exhibition battles involving him. So I have so much for you if you're somebody that just loves vibing out and enjoying dance. You guys know me, I know you. I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.